Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and today we'll be talking about the potential sale of MEC before getting the retailer perspective on last week's REI exclusivity rumors. And before we get to that, though, guys, be sure to come back to the Rock Fight this Wednesday, where I will be joined by Gear Abbey herself, Shantae Salabert, to run through some outdoor headlines, and then come back to the show this Friday for an OG Rock Fight solo episode. And then lastly, I need you to subscribe, everybody, to both the Rock Fight and also to Open Container, the newest Rock Fight podcast that is hosted by outdoor industry legend Doug Schnitzbahn. All you got to do is tap the follow button on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on right now, and then head over to Open Container, do the same thing over there. You'll get all the Rock Fight content you want. So stick around. We'll be right back. Today's episode of The Rock Fight is presented by Oboes, who wants to share their love of hiking, and we want to help them by uncovering all the different reasons we love to take the long walk. And right now, we're going to count 5 of the ways that we love hiking. Number 1, you can go solo or bring a crew. Both come with their own drama, so tread lightly. Number 2, no two trails are exactly the same, but your legs won't care by mile 6. Number 3, you get to earn your hot chocolate, your beer, or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Guilt-free carbs, baby. Number 4, hey, hiking builds confidence, especially after you dominate that quote-unquote moderate trail that tried to kill you. And number 5, for every hike completed over a mile long during the month of April, Oboes will plant a tree as part of its Trails for Trees challenge. For each hike completed, participants will also receive chances to win weekly prizes from Oboes and challenge partners. Registration is free and still open right now at trailsfortrees.com. This hiking appreciation moment is brought to you by Oboes of Bozeman, Montana, maker of the Katabatic collection that includes the Katabatic LT and the Katabatic Wind. Check out the full Katabatic footwear collection at obosfootwear.com today. Oboes, love hiking. You're listening to Rock Fight Radio. Oh, you got DJ CT back with you spinning the hits, and it's that time because we have another new song from that hit machine, Fitz. And Fitz wants to ask you, why just settle for a smart sock when you can opt for a smarter sock?
You've got a million choices lying on the floor. Thin ones, thick ones, even some you never wore. But there's a sock whose specs rise above the rest. Don't settle for a smart one when the smarter sock is best. Opt for the smarter sock. Fitz. Fitz is the smarter sock. Fitz. Whole foot comfort is the answer to the question of the knit. Fitz. Opt for the smarter sock. Fitz. Whole foot comfort is the goal. It's only common sense with 4 different patents. The difference is immense. The Y line's added volume really is legit to the next level. Comfort of the fit we call Fitz. Opt for the smarter sock. Fitz. Fitz is the smarter sock. Fitz. Whole foot comfort is the answer to the question of the knit. Fitz. Opt for the smarter sock. Fitz. The smarter sock. Fitz. Fitz is the smarter sock. Fitz. Whole foot comfort is the answer to the question of the knit. Fitz. Opt for the smarter sock. Fitz.
And now, back to the show. All right, I'm here with producer Dave and consigliere to the Rock Fight, outdoor industry insider Eoin Comerford. Guys, my Lem switchbacks are on the way. I got confirmation. I got my sandals coming, so we're gonna get to do the big switchback versus bedrocks review. Yeah, we're gonna see which ones win in the big sandal debate.
The next sandal debate.
You don't want to throw the Tread Labs in there too? No?
You love Tread Labs.
I do. I love my Tread Labs.
Yeah? Do they look good? I didn't like the way they looked when I first saw them. I was like, eh.
Well, now, did you go with the one with the what the toe post, whatever that thing is called, the thong?
I don't know. The one I saw had definitely a retirement home vibe going on, you know. So I was kind of
maybe that's why I like it.
Right. You did just buy a boat.
Yeah, maybe. God, okay. It's just comfortable as hell.
Yeah, I bet. Hey, Mark Pagan, he knows how to make a shoe.
He does know that.
So today's shot is presented by Garage Grown Gear, your hub for ultralight gear. Learn more by heading to garagegrowngear.com. And we're going to start today in the Great White North, because on the January 20th episode of The Rock Fight, Eoin came on the show and talked about rumors that MEC had either been sold or was about to be sold, amid other reports that MEC had also fallen behind in their vendor payments. Eoin, you told us back then that Kingswood Capital Management had bought MEC back in 2020, and so the time was about right that they'd be looking to sell off one of Canada's biggest outdoor retailers. And now there are new details coming out about who could be the front runner to buy MEC. What have we learned, Eoin? What's going on?
Before we dive in there, just for our listeners that may not be familiar with MEC. So MEC used to stand for Mountain Equipment Co-op, and it's basically the REI of Canada. I'm sure they hate being called the REI of Canada, but basically that's what they are. They started up.
Do they also demand exclusivity from
probably?
Probably. Yeah.
No, they're not big enough for that. But actually, they started right across the border in Vancouver, right across the border from Seattle. So they were very much the REI of Canada. And if you went into their store, you would, as an REI customer, you'd be very comfortable in their stores. Lots of private brand stuff, etc.
I think we said when you were on, when we talked about this before, though, I do prefer MEC stores to REI stores. I think it's a better shopping experience, personally.
I've only actually been to one MEC, which is the one in Toronto on Kings Road, I think, but it was a lovely store.
Okay.
But anyway, so then when Kingswood bought them, they lost the co-op status. They became Mountain Equipment Company, still MEC, and then here we are. But yeah, so what we've learned is, and this was kind of like, for me, I'm this geek, right? So I'm trying to figure out who is it? I'm kind of talking to a bunch of people, trying to get a bunch of sources. It went in front of the competition committee in Canada, which basically is, kind of like their FTC. Okay. Which would indicate if it's going in front of the competition committee, it was probably another retailer. So was it Canada Tire? Was a Mountain Warehouse looking to expand even further because they have 44 stores in Canada? So I had all these different theories going, and it turns out I was wrong on all of them because it's actually a guy called Tim Gu, and Tim is actually he's a bit of a mover and shaker in the apparel segment within Canada. So he's the president of a company called eStar International, and they're an apparel manufacturing and sourcing company that specializes in what they call functional athletic apparel. And so it's like yoga, running, that kind of stuff. And their clients have included Canada Goose, Fila, Reebok, that do some work for Walmart, and they have manufacturing and sourcing both in Canada as well as in Asia. So a decently sized player. It would appear that Mr. Gu owns, I hope I'm not killing the pronunciation of his last name, it's GU.
No relation to the energy gel brand in Berkeley, California.
Maybe.
I would assume.
No, I don't think so.
I would see them in the room at the same time.
But he owns eStar through Smart Investment Limited, which is a vehicle that also has stakes in iconic Canadian brands like Tilly, the hat people, and Roots, the well-known sort of whatever leisure wear. I don't know what you call it.
Streetwear.
Fashion.
Yeah, streetwear.
Streetwear. Yeah. I think that didn't Roots do the Canadian Olympic uniform? Anyway,
I believe they did. Yeah, they did.
And commercial real estate. So this guy is definitely a mover and shaker in the Canadian space. So that is the deal.
And plenty of crossover into the kind of MEC realm with a lot of these brands too.
Oh, sure. And as I said, MEC has a very large private brand presence. I believe it's over 50% of their sales are private brand. Packs, tents. So it's not just apparel, although there's a lot of apparel. So clearly eStar is going to bring a lot of really deep capabilities there, and can hopefully take that to the next level. And also, obviously, Tim has a record of working with Canadian brands. So, I think it's a good thing. And, a lot of MEC loyalists, right, really reacted poorly, as you would imagine, to A, losing co-op status, right? And B, having it owned by a U.S. company. And obviously that those situations haven't improved in the last not at all months, right?
Likely exacerbated.
I think this is going to be pretty welcome. I mean, can you imagine if REI became a private company that was owned by some Russian oligarch? I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about here from a Canadian perspective.
If you go to Reddit, that's already happened.
What do you mean? Oh, yes. Right. Good point.
I'm pretty sure there are multiple threads about the conspiracy of the Russian oligarchs controlling
there's American
tents.
oligarchs. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, not there.
When did things really start to kind of get wobbly for MEC? And so they were sold in 2020. How were things leading up to that? Because I'm thinking about if you've been a long time MEC employee, when was the last time there's been some stability?
Really, it was in 2018 and 2019. They hit some major financial issues, and then it ended up going bankrupt. Going into administration, as they call it in Canada.
Sounds so much nicer.
Sounds
by the way.
They're so much nicer up there. I guess
you're like, if you have to deal with the bankruptcy and you're trying to get a loan afterwards, I went bankrupt versus, well, I just came out of administration and I'm trying to get back on my feet. Such a nicer word.
But so much nicer. But yeah, so they went through bankruptcy, and that was basically find an outside investor or a buyer, which Kings would end up being, or actually fold the whole thing. So
yeah,
I think the good news for MEC employees is that they've got somebody with some good solid financial backing that's bringing more to the table than just a private equity view of the world. Also, actually, that it's not another retailer that's buying them, because if another retailer buys you, then there's a good chance there's going to be some consolidation and quote unquote synergies, which is Latin for firing people. So yeah, I think it's hopefully a really good outcome for all involved.
What about for customers? How do you think if you were a longtime MEC customer, maybe you're a little hurt about the loss of the co-op? How do you feel like this plays out if you're paying attention to these things?
Well, I mean, I don't think they're getting the co-op structure back, so I think that ship has sailed. But I do think moving back to Canadian roots, Canadian designed product, potentially Canadian manufactured product, which is something that E-Star also brings to the table, I think could actually resonate pretty well right now, and it might be a chance for MEC to win back some of the customers that they lost over the last few years.
Yeah, I think plugging them into an already existing product development cycle, a little more contemporary, at least from the roots perspective, could really benefit MEC. You talked about them as the REI. They've also pretty seen as middle of the road from a design and trend perspective. So I think this could really help them.
Is there? Just roll with me here for a second. Is there a case to be made for the problems that REI has had and been dealing with in the court of public opinion? Dave, you mentioned the whole Reddit, not a lot of fans of REI on Reddit, that they should just punt on being a co-op.
That was the fans, Colin.
Yeah.
No, I quoted the fans. That's you don't want to hear the non-fans.
They love you so much that they're just ripping you all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a case to be made for that, or if they just sort of took that off the table? You don't have to worry about that anymore. It's just is it? I understand it's so rooted in who they are, but is that kind of a crazy solution to some of their problems?
I don't think it's a solution to any of their problems.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, no, because the co-op is so core to who they are. If you did that, you would alienate so many customers. That would just be the start of your problems. And I don't know that the co-op structure has really hurt them. Yes, to a degree. If the co-op structure ever hurt REI, it was because it almost created a disincentive to make a lot of profits and to sort of build up a cash war chest that then would have seen them through this. And there are some limitations, I think, around things potentially. There's a level of conservatism around things like loans and those sorts of things. But yeah, losing that structure, I think, would be really, really tough for REI.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't sold even on the idea as I was saying it, but I just think of the criticism you hear a lot, and it's from the union folks and everything. It's just constant. Well, you're not acting like a co-op. You're acting like a company. You're doing all of the those sort of the accusations being levied at them by certain folks. And and I kind of look at that well, what are you still gaining from this versus what it might do for you. But yeah, I hear you. It's obviously so core to who they are. Maybe they should probably get back to thinking a little more like that, and maybe that would solve some of their problems for them. But
I think part of that critique, so to speak, is this concept that a co-op is almost like a commune, right? It's like this sort of leftist construct, right? And therefore it's progressive, and therefore it should support unions and these other things. And that's actually not what it is, right? A co-op is there and exists for the betterment of its members. Okay, i.e., the people that are retail customers of REI. And so, is it in the members' interest to support unions? Maybe, maybe not, right? But I think this idea that co-op equals progressive equals leftist equals you must support unions. I don't think that that's necessarily true.
I think that's ultimately where I'm going with this, right? And probably you're right. It's a misunderstanding of what they're actually criticizing, right? And that's kind of why I'm like, oh God, at some point just wipe it away and take that off the table. Which I agree, not the right idea. Maybe the thing is, hey, start a PR campaign to kind of take the word back in a way. How do you do that? Which I mean, they're always they've been on their heels for so long. That's probably not a fight that they're willing to pick right now. Why would you? But if at some point things got to stabilize, I would wonder if that would be a smart thing to do.
Yeah, they leaned into the co-op thing. I mean, for a long time, it was just the REI logo. They actually moved back to the REI with co-op as part of the logo. Yeah. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So they've leaned into the co-op piece, and so maybe that maybe part of that identity is part of what's getting people wound up. But again, I don't think that the two are necessarily hand in hand.
Well, you mentioned the change, putting the logo, and I hate to be cynical, but I feel it was more of a what's brand trendy, right? So let's lean into something that we already are and start promoting it in a way that they had gone away from, right? As if
they couldn't do arrows and an axe, so they went with co-op, basically, kind of thing. And
they could have done arrows and an axe, right? Right. That was, you could get those for really cheap back then.
Yeah, Polar had that corner tied up.
But yeah, no, I think you're all right. The misidentification of what a co-op really is, and maybe the progressive dream of what it could be or once was, right?
Like I just picture a bunch of Portlandia characters, like
I think of entering the store and everyone's doing their shared chores and they're ruling by consensus. I think that's the
right. They have to take their break with the drum circle.
But what is that? That's that smell of patchouli.
That's right. Hey, do you guys want to know what's new at Garage Grown Gear?
Do.
It's your hub for ultralight backpacking gear, if you didn't know that. Because this is what's new over at Garage Grown Gear. Because it's been Alpha Fleece Fever. It's happening on Garage Grown Gear. They have restocks of the iconic ultralight hoodies made with Polartec Alpha Direct fleece from brands like Farpoint Outdoor Gear. If you've never seen Alpha fabric before, you got to check it out. It's a meshy, furry, comfy ultralight fleece with a super high warmth to weight ratio and wicking superpowers to keep you warm and dry. GGG's even got the first ever women's-specific Alpha hoodie made by Alpine Fit 2. Go check out God, it's a lot of F sounds. Go check out Alpha Fleece Fever at GGG by hitting the link in the show notes, or just head to garagegrowngear.com. Dave, I saw you smiling during that read. Did you like the way they described Alpha?
No, it's actually it misses the main positional.
Don't you pick on Garage Grown Gear? They wrote us a check.
I'm sorry, but it goes back to Polartec. Somebody messed up, and that's not how you describe Alpha. Alpha is an active insulation. It's a specific form of active insulation. It's non-fill. It's a roll. It's built on a lattice that traps air in a much smaller place. Developed for special forces to dry very quickly, very fast, and that's why it's been adopted by the through hiking community for all of those properties. So it's a very unique type of fabric. Is it more of an insulation layer than a finished fabric?
Well,
the direct is the version that they created so you can wear it as a finished layer. It was, you're right, initially created as an inside piece, but as soon as they rolled it out, a lot of the brands, especially European alpine brands, were like, "Hey, can we just wear this by itself?" And they were like, "No." And they're going, "We're going to do it anyway." And so, okay, well, we better figure out a way to make it more durable. But it's been one of those, overnight successes that took probably 6 years to roll in.
Well, no one knew what to do with it. They launched when I got to Polartec, and everyone thought it was cool, but they're all like, they were just trying to made their puffy jackets with it, which is not what you're supposed to. Well, I mean, you can do that, but it wasn't like.
But it's not for that.
Best, because it's made for being active in. But it is when I often reference on the show, like, hey, everything is kind of, all the technologies and apparel fabrics came out in the late 90s, and there's been a few moments along the way where some things have been innovated. I'm usually thinking of Alpha in 2013. that was kind of a big leap forward in an insulation that wasn't available before.
And now everybody knocks it off.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Lloyd. We yes-anded your copy with some inside baseball and alpha. All right, let's get into our conversation with Wes Allen. He's back on the show to talk about the REI exclusivity topic that Dave and I chatted about last week. All right, folks. Time to set the record straight. A few weeks back, listeners heard me rant on about a new sandal from Lem's Shoes. That sandal, the new switchback sandal, is a classic single-strap, single-post style that I, without much knowledge, accused of me tooing. And look, in hindsight, it's hard to me too a style that's thousands of years old, right? What I wasn't informed on was Lem's unique take on making footwear, and let's just say a few rocks were thrown back at me, and rightly so, because Lem's has really elevated the design of minimalist, natural movement footwear, anatomically correct fit, zero drop comfort, and lightweight outdoor performance. And the switchback? It's crafted from a single piece of material and features a unique single strap design with one buckle for super ease of use, added comfort, and getting it on outside. You can personally check it out yourself when it becomes available on Wednesday, April 23rd. And oh, hey, retailers, did you know that Lem's is looking for wholesale partners? Hit them up at support@lemsshoes.com to add a little flavor to your shoe wall. And be sure to stop by and say hi to the Lem's team at their booth at Switchback in Nashville this June. So to all the Lem's fans I may have offended, my sincerest apologies. And to Lem's, well, you did pay for this advertisement, but more importantly, you made a believer out of me. I've eaten my words, and they tasted like freedom. Check out the new Switchback sandal by heading to lemsshoes.com. All right, we're joined now by Wes Allen, who owns Sunlight Sports in Cody, Wyoming, and has become the voice of the retailer here on the Rock Fight. And retailers everywhere have unanimously agreed that Wes speaks for them when he's on the show. Isn't that right, Wes?
I believe that you have misread the results of the survey. I can confidently say it that I speak for a very select group of independent retailers with stores in Cody, Wyoming.
Are outdoor retailers unanimous in their opinion on anything?
No.
I don't know. I think that there's some things that most retailers agree about, like brands discounting their own shit. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is very, very common concern amongst a lot of independent specialty retail. And I think what we're going to talk about today falls right in squarely into that category.
Excellent segue by our consigliere, because we wanted to take a minute to hear from the retail side of things. Last week here on the show, producer Dave and I responded to the rumors that REI had started putting the squeeze on some of their brand partners to gain exclusive distribution for new and updated product launches. So we wanted to kind of just revisit this for a minute with both Wes and Eoin. Wes, starting with you, you were on the show a few weeks back talking about Ultra giving REI exclusive access to the Lone Peak 9 Plus. And it felt like the general consensus after that episode, not just the episode of the show, but that episode at the retail level here, was that even from the Ultra side of things, that was probably not the right move. They should not have limited where that shoe could show up during its release. When you hear rumors that perhaps there has been an increase in these types of requests from REI, what's your reaction as a retailer, especially a specialty retailer?
Yeah, well, I think I have a very strong reaction, and it's probably not suitable for a family show, Colin. I think the top line thing that I would say here is that the change isn't necessarily that they're asking for exclusives and early release and all that kind of stuff, because that's been SOP for them for a while. I think the thing that's really come clear, as I heard you guys talk about it, and as I talked to my friends in the vendor community, is simply that the requests are more persistent and intense right now for a product that's going into spring 26. And as an independent retailer, I'll just tell you, that sucks. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it, but like boxing a bunch of small mom and pop shops out of being competitive on new product, that's a move from a bunch of people who sell scissors at Amazon. It's not necessarily something that you would associate with kind of the feel good, get around the campfire outdoor industry.
Oh, and my initial response on last week's episode was basically, this is not the time, given everything else that's going on in the world. So when you weigh out our kind of current economic situation, allow for the possibility that REI may just consider this as business as usual. I mean, do you agree that these are the types of goals that probably should be put aside for the time being?
I mean, it depends on where you're looking at it from. I think, as even you pointed out last week, even you, Colin, pointed out last week
What?
that
What did I say? What did I say?
no, that basically there's been a huge turnover in the executive team at REI. I mean, you look at sort of the big three relative to to merchandise and sort of the customer facing piece. Chief merchant, chief marketing officer, CEO, all new within the last 12 months, 6 months. I mean, recent. So, and all coming from outside the outdoor industry, really from much more, big box retail. And I mean, this is big box retail 101. So I don't know that we should be entirely surprised. If anything, I think they would say, hey, we're just sort of occupying the space that we should command. Right. And let's say you look at Dick's Sporting Goods, for example, who is really is taking share, is dominating the sporting goods segment, which is obviously closely aligned with outdoor. And this is their playbook. This is absolutely their playbook. And if you listen to the analyst calls like I do, what they come back to again and again and again is that a differentiated, unique product assortment is what sets them apart. Because people come into the store, they get that product, and oh, by the way, they're not competing online with Amazon or with anybody else, so they can ensure that they get full margin. It's high demand. It's all these things. So from a purely REI centric approach, it totally makes sense. If that's all you care about are the results of REI, then yeah, it makes sense. And is this a new policy? I don't know if it's really a policy. I think when you reached out to REI, they said no, it's not a new policy. If I had to guess, though, I would say, the new chief merchant comes in, and all the merchants under the chief merchant, are kind of in those meetings where they're talking about strategy. And, she probably said, hey, listen, we need to lean in here. This is something that we want to do. We have the power to ask for these things, ask for them. Maybe some merchants have taken that further than intended. Who knows? But yeah, it doesn't make it suck any less, though, for specialty retail. And yeah, it's tough. I think if REI, if everything was rosy at REI from a financial perspective, you'd say, really, you have to do this right now. But I think they're at a point where, like, hey, we got to take care of our own. Which again, not a great answer for specialty retail.
Well, I was going to say, I wanted to ask kind of both of you, between the two of you and your general experience at big box, at specialty and everything. Does it even work? Does the exclusivity thing even really work? Is it that valuable? I mean, I guess that's something we haven't really questioned, because it just seems, frankly, it's a little off-putting, right? Especially someone in Wes's shoes, that like in this time and with everything going on, they're like, hey, we're going to put the squeeze on people so that, you can't get new products. But even if they're successful, I know it could definitely hurt you, Wes, but like, does it actually work at the higher level? I mean, do these things pay off?
100% it works. Yeah, because you can, you first of all, you get to position yourself as the place to be or to come to get the latest stuff that you can't get anywhere else. And that's key especially in the outdoor enthusiast's mind, that gear nerd that really wants the latest and greatest, the coolest, the newest, all that stuff. If you can be, hey, not only do we have that stuff, we're the only place that has that stuff. That's cool, right? And that's key. And the second thing is pricing power, right? You're not competing with anybody else. You don't have to worry about some asshole, going off map on a brand new product and adding it to their 20% off coupon, right? That's not a problem. And so, same thing with SEO, with online marketing. You're not competing on Google Shopping for clicks on this thing, right? It's immensely powerful.
Can I just counterpoint that? How fond do you think the people at Rawlings are of this? So if you're going to look at it from a vendor perspective, it sucks. Let's just set aside like what you're talking about for specialty retailers. And when you're talking about this kind of thing, right? Like this is boxing out smaller retailers, but to your point, Eoin, this is not necessarily about competing with the smaller retailers. Every time I think about this kind of thing, I think about like when we were growing up and there were pictures of like big dinosaurs fighting, right? And like there are chunks of meat flying off and everything's 30 feet tall. Well, that's really dramatic for the dinosaurs as they fight over the stuff, but it really sucks for the mammals that are underneath and all the little little animals around, because as those two just spin around and fight, everybody else gets smashed into the mud. That's what goes on here with specialty retail. But I would really have you think about this. And when I say Rawlings, do you know who Rawlings is?
Like the baseball company?
Right, exactly. How happy do you think they are having basically a monoculture to sell to? If you're a vendor and you're looking at this and you're thinking about basically turning over this advantage to one brand and one retailer that is trying to set itself up for domination in a category, how happy are you with that? I know that if I were still a sales manager, I would be very unhappy about that, because when you start talking about pricing power, you're not talking about pricing power just to the consumer. You start really talking about wielding pricing power um, over your suppliers. And if I'm a supplier, like, yeah, if I'm in, I don't know, backpacking stoves where REI probably controls 50 or 60% of the US market, I might feel that I have no other choice than to give the newest, coolest backpacking stove to the big green giant in Seattle.
Right.
But I'm also just like signing on to be the house brand backpacking stove at that point. And next year, when they still don't make their financials, you get to receive an email that says, "Hey, sorry about your costs going up. We're not accepting price increases at this point," and you don't have anywhere else to go.
Certainly from the supplier perspective, you do not want to be concentrated, with more than 50%, let alone, I mean, really, you don't want to be more than 20% with a single customer. I mean, 50% is rough. And by the way, that is where a lot of outdoor brands find themselves with REI. And so, I think up until recently, REI hasn't necessarily played that card, but they absolutely have it, and it sounds like they're starting to play it. But no, it's not a great place to be. And oh, by the way, there are brands in our industry that have discovered that, where REI decided overnight, like, hey, you know what? We're this category is really more about what we want to service that with our private brand. So we're not going to buy apparel from XYZ company anymore. We'll still buy your
Sure.
tents, but we don't want the rest of your stuff. I mean, overnight that can be an absolute potentially a death knell to a company, but certainly really, really put the screws on. So it's challenging. And then there are European brands that have launched with REI that didn't go well, and that are still facing the impacts of that years later. So
Sure.
you do have to be careful who you get into bed with. And I think brands that are considering this situation have to consider those ramifications too. I've heard of situations in the past where REI has threatened to totally drop brands if they don't do what they want done. And the brands caved. They absolutely did cave. So yeah, and what I would say is it's interesting that the REI culture has definitely shifted back and forth over the years depending on the leadership. I mean, it was a different company under Sally, right? Then it was a very different company under Jerry, and
Yep.
then it was a different company again under Eric. And so are we seeing a new cultural shift at REI back to maybe more the Jerry type culture, which was very much more that kind of retail, kind of roll up our sleeves and get in the muck kind of situation?
It could very well be. I mean, that's definitely the impression that I'm getting. And obviously, I have a horse in this fight. Is that the term? I don't think it is. I think it's a dog in the fight and a horse in this race. But actually,
Horses
I
are
have
always
my.
packing. They've
I
got just
like
their
I
arm
like
to the
fighting
gills.
horses.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
into
that's
it.
much
There's the
cooler.
cover art for this episode. I think,
Right.
Dave.
The fighting horses. Now, if they had that at Outside Fest, I'd go see that.
I think it's a
Yeah,
race.
that's
I think
probably
it's a
would
horse
too.
in this race.
A lot of us are going to be in Reno here in a couple of months. We should see what the opportunities are there. It seems like the right kind of place for that
We'll get
type of
T-shirts made.
entertainment. Yeah.
That's right.
I guess I
It's
would
the
say
horse
is
fight.
me, like a lot of other people, we actually have our house in this fight, in that we, are paying our mortgages and everything with incomes out of our retailers. And there are two maybe contradictory things that I would point out here. One is that there's still a lot of power in independently owned specialty and being able to tell brand stories. And those brand stories, more often than not, as people are able to really promote their brands and they're really able to shape people's perceptions, those perceptions are based around your new product and your exciting product. Limiting your ability to sell those brand stories to one particular category of retailer, one particular retailer, instead of having a wide variety of them is a difficult thing. But on the other hand, I think we've all been around the industry long enough to like be very open and honest about why this is an easy decision sometimes for brand to make, to give a new exciting product to basically the one dominant retailer in a category. And that is simply this, that if you've spent 2 years developing this product, which is a pretty typical product development cycle, and you're really excited about it and you want to get it out there, it's easy to talk to the marketing people at the big dominant retailer and be told the story that they're going to work really hard to launch your product. And, I wrote a letter to my vendors and to some of my peers as I started to hear this in the last week or so about REI's increased focus on exclusives. And that letter was basically to retailers, we should stand up and say something about this. And then my one to vendors was asking for information about what their plans for spring 26 is. As I sent those letters, I knew that was probably a somewhat of a losing rear guard action, because it's not really presenting anybody with strategic options to say, please don't do that thing because it hurts me. I think the thing I would put out into the industry, and a rock that I would throw here, is simply if people like me don't want to see all those exclusives and the cool new product, go to one dominant retailer that kind of is leveraging everybody out to try to find a way to be profitable. Like, we as a group of people probably need to come together and find a way to present a palatable alternative, right? Like,
Exactly. And I couldn't agree with you more. And it's something we talked about, I think, the last time you were on the show, Wes, is how do we harness the collective power of 1,000+ doors, right, that exist within independent outdoor specialty. The other thing I would say is, and I hope this message was delivered loud and clear from the last time you were on and talking about the Lone Peak Plus, is that if a brand is going down this path, actually have the whatevers to tell your specialty retailers that this is going to happen, right? Because if you don't, you are absolutely losing all trust and credibility within our industry. And then we as an industry can make a decision about where we're going to buy. And if you're going to bring out the latest and greatest stove that basically makes the old version obsolete, well, let us know that, because we can change our order book accordingly, and we'll happily buy from somebody who isn't going to do that to us. So yeah, that to me is the minimum expectation here in my mind.
Agreed. I think it can be no other way. Like, and just to be clear, I've gotten as I've reached out to my friends at brands and everything, and I've asked the question about what's going on based on the word that's going around the industry. Really, I can kind of put those responses into like three kind of basic buckets, and one is we're not doing anything exclusive with them. It's a relatively rare answer, but it's generally given by brands that have like big apparel businesses outside where they're not being dominated, or they're a big footwear brand and they're so well spread in the market that no single retailer has that sort of leverage over them. The next one that I've been getting a lot is, we got asked for a few and we're giving one. And then the third, that's probably the most common right now, is simply this, and this is to your last point, Owen, is no comment as of yet, right? So been getting a lot of those kind of conversations. And to be fair, a lot of brands haven't executed on their sales meetings yet, and so they might have announcements at sales meetings going on about that. We might get more information. But, for anybody who's got the no comment yet, that's fine. Better tell all those small stores before they place orders.
Hey, Wes, thank you so much for coming
You
on.
bet.
Appreciate your
Absolutely.
time and for you speaking on behalf of the thousands. Is that what you said, Eoin? Outdoor
1,000 plus
retailers.
stores. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
unanimously elected. Appreciate you coming. No, thank you
All
very
right.
much, man. I always
You bet.
appreciate your input on these things.
All
See you,
right.
Wes.
You bet.
It's time for a party shot.
All right, it's time for the parting shot. We got 2 parting shots today. Dave, where's yours? You don't have a parting shot? Like, come on.
These are
we got
pretty
2.
meaty. I'm going to just
You're
feast
just
on
gonna sit
these.
back and enjoy.
Yeah.
Got some popcorn.
Yeah.
Oh, and what's your parting shot?
It is about my favorite topic, which is the Department of the Interior and those
You're always
MFers
talking
over
about the
there.
Department of the Interior. I can't have a conversation with you without you bringing up the Department of the
Yeah, I'm
Interior.
great at a dinner party. Like, get me going on the Department of the
Well,
Interior.
did you know?
Oh, wow. Hey, this Doug Burgum character. No, but the interesting thing was that we got to see a leaked copy of the Department of Interior fiscal year 2026 to 2030 strategic framework. And actually, some kind person, I think somebody who actually cares about public lands inside the DOI, I think, leaked this to a reporter at Public Domain, not coincidentally on Earth Day. This was leaked. So, yeah. So somebody that cares about our planet. Shocking. The thing is that everything that we feared was coming down is coming down. If anything, it's worse. Okay. So, yes, increased commercial exploitation of public lands, drilling, mining, lumber, grazing. Yep, that's all in there. Dismantling regulations to protect our public lands. You betcha. Resizing and downsizing of national monuments. It's there. The sale of public lands, even for housing projects. Yep, that's there. And then we're going to remove endangered species protections. Yeah, let's do that too. And while we're at it, you know what? Let's move the control of public lands from the federal level to state and local governments who really mainly care about their local constituents, like ranchers, like oil people, etc. Right? That we're going to do all those things in this document. So, yeah, it's bad. Now, supposedly this is only a draft, quote unquote, and the DOI was pretty pissed off that someone leaked it. But it shows
leaks are so uncommon in the Trump administration.
It's the deep
Sorry.
state, Colin. The deep state is fighting back. But in sort of official confirmation of this, they officially did come out in the last couple of days, and they said that they are having accelerated permitting procedures to develop American energy dominance by removing key safeguards to expedite the process. For like drilling or whatever else, these processes used to take a couple of years because there was environmental impact studies and all these other things to make sure that we weren't going to fuck everything up. That 2-year process now should be no longer than 28 days. So tell me how much we can really figure out about what this is going to do to our environment in 28 days. Probably not, but hey, who cares? It's all about you drill, baby, drill. Also, it was announced that 6 national monuments are under review for energy development, including Bears Ears, Chuckwalla, Grand Staircase Escalante, and others. So this shit is happening. So my parting shot is, if you are a brand that had been sort of sitting on the sidelines, taking that wait and see, maybe it's not as bad as we think attitude, it's worse. Okay. So now is the time to step up before there are irreversible impacts on our public lands. So if you want to step up, speak out, join Brands for Public Lands, which is a coalition of outdoor brands that's being coordinated by the Conservation Alliance, and lobby your Congress people, your senators, whoever will listen, to stop this shit before it is too late.
The thing, this arrived, we got this yesterday, and the thing that kind of struck me when, I think I got it right before I was getting on a call, and I was just kind of quick opened it, and I was like kind of breezing through it, was how normal it just looks. It's like a regular, almost like PowerPoint presentation.
It is a PowerPoint, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're like, oh, and you see like, it's like, okay, well, maybe, just because it felt just so like, the matter of fact, and this is what we're going to do. And then you really have to sit and read every word, and you're like, oh, this is fucking diabolical. Like, oh my God. So, yeah. Yeah,
It's
brands for public
couched in all
lands.
sorts of, political babble about stakeholders and
Right.
and
And this will
and
improve
the
the blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
the
And right,
betterment
yeah.
of the nation, capital N
The
for nation.
nation.
Yes,
Capitalized.
yes. It's just God, awful, just awful.
Dave?
What else? What can I say? It's pretty Orwellian. I mean, no doubt about it. They're going to protect endangered species by removing protections, right? I mean, we're going to conserve public lands by opening them up to resource extraction. I just, you can't make it up. I mean, really, no one doing a parody would be so shameless as to put these obvious and over the top kind of objectives to this language, and that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. All right. Well, for my parting shot, not quite as dark as Owen's, but dark in its own way. I'm not excited about this. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I see something or read something and it sort of trips my trigger the right way. Like it causes kind of a bit of adrenalized response to where my angst is like physically manifested, and I kind of get the shakes because I'm so put off. And this happened to me yesterday because I saw a LinkedIn story about a company called You're Wild that is coming to Denver. Now, You're Wild, which is URWLD.
Are you sure it's called Your Wild?
I don't, frankly, because they're choosing certain vowels are okay. Other vowels we don't need, but whatever. I'm going to assume it's Your Wild.
Well, if you pay by the letter, this has some really genius application.
I mean, I guess, or it's Your Willed. So
or Your
you decide
World.
which one you want to go with.
Your World.
Anyway,
Yeah,
there's no R.
Okay, let's.
A distant relative to the Griswolds. It could be the Urwalds.
The Your
I don't know.
The Urwalds.
Oh, Your Wild would be good.
Right.
Anyway, it's a UK-based company that creates indoor adventure centers. And that doesn't sound bad, right? You may wonder why this made me so angry. Well, dear listeners, it's because of the length that Your Wild or Your whatever we're calling this thing is going to in order to bring the outdoors inside. So if you go to their website, Your Wild, the facility, it includes activities, and this is a list: ice climbing, scuba diving, canyoneering, coasteering. I double-checked the spelling of that. It's coasteering. I didn't know that was a thing. Apparently, that's a thing. Spelunking and caving. I don't know if there's a difference there. I don't believe there is. I believe that's the same thing as well.
Spelunking is so much cooler than caving.
It is. Just put spelunking. Surfing and bodyboarding.
Canyoneering says hold my beer. But
and there's also climbing and bouldering. And if you look at the artist's rendering of what a location will look like, it's truly trying to recreate these very specific outdoor environments, but also with elevated food and DJ booths. And the whole thing takes the idea of a rock climbing gym and runs with it in a way that just makes me sick to my stomach, mostly because an indoor rock gym is rooted in the outdoors in a way that makes sense for everyone. Climbers can train, the climbing curious can dabble, but then it also provides the overarching outdoor vibe, that you can build a community out of. Your Wild feels like it's trying to become, at best, an alternative and at worst, a replacement for trying these activities outside. And will there be some who see this as the kicking off point to their outdoorsy life? Probably, I could see that happening. But I'd worry that it ends up being mostly a resource-sucking endpoint for those who will never know how much more rewarding these activities could be if they were just done in their more natural environment. So basically, for me, the TLDR is You're Wild. Please don't. Just go outside instead. I hate that this thing's happening.
I think you're missing. I think you're missing the boat here, Colin. I think
what's
the
whole
boat? Point of this. Look, we just talked about the calamity facing our national parks and our wild spaces. This to me seems like the answer.
Right.
Your wild Yosemite, right? It's coming right now.
Yeah.
You don't
the
need
1/16th recreation of El Cap inside.
We can mine the hell out of that place and have it over here like a snow globe.
But it's kind of like when you would take a French chateau and deconstruct it brick by brick and then bring it over here and construct it. Same kind of thing. National monument. Exactly. There's an arch over that mineral deposit. There's some copper down there, people. We deconstruct the arch. We're going to make it right here in
Denver,
suburban. Well, that one might be Salt Lake City, in fairness.
Good point.
But wow.
Also, the research, they're going to have an ice wall in there. Ice climbing will be on ice that they're going to refresh every day. I'm like, this is it's going to be like the largest ice wall in North America. And I'm like,
what does it take to power that refrigeration truck?
The refrigeration. I'm just like the footprint of this facility to recreate stuff. And look, I'm not if you want to, you need to learn to scuba dive, you got to go in a pool and get certified or whatever. But that's usually because you're going to then go somewhere to go scuba diving. The idea that I want to try canyoneering. Well, then go to fucking Utah and hire a guide.
Yeah, but see,
you know,
Colin,
like, and
it's
learn
like
to
you got to
canyoneer.
get there. You got to travel. You're putting a footprint together. So if
That's true.
if you can remove all adventure travel to just go to this down the street, maybe it does pencil out.
How big is this? This thing would have to be fucking massive. How, like, I mean,
165,000 square feet.
even that feels like it's too small. I mean,
No,
we're talking
it's
about
just-
spelunking and co-steering and all
They're going
kinds
to
of
build
shit.
a cave, I guess, that you can go like ripping around in.
I think you just staple 2 Top Golfs together, and I think you could get one of these. That's kind of like an
I don't like
IKEA
golf
furniture.
courses for much for the same reason that I don't like this. This one is just kind of standing on our corner. It just bugs me. But I had a nice back and forth.
I thought it was the acronym that was bothering
that bothers
you.
me. It's like salt in the wound. And the guy who posted about this, who's the economic development guy for Denver, and I posted about it, and he responded to me and actually threw back. I guess he went searching and found something I had said about rock climbing gyms on the podcast and pasted it into his response.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so,
Ooh.
I responded back to him, and then I sent him a message. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'd love to have you come on the podcast. Like, come on and talk me into this thing. Like, seriously, like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it would be, we would treat you right. We're not going to be dicks about it."
He responded with violence. I love it.
He did not respond to my request to have him on the podcast.
Oh, that's too bad.
Actually, I won't cut that. I'm going to call you out, buddy. Come on the podcast. So, you're wild. You're willed. You're Walds.
I think the Urwalds. Yeah, it's the that
ice
kind of
climbing,
the next
scuba
movie
diving.
in the trilogy right there, right? Urwald Natural Vacation is actually to an indoor facility.
There you go.
I'm down.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there today. Come back on Wednesday and Friday for more episodes of The Rock Fight. Also, check out the latest from Open Container. Go follow that show to hear Doug Schnitzbahn. The Rock Fight's a production of Rock Fight LLC. Our producer today was producer David Karstad. Art direction provided by Sarah Gensert. For Eoin Comerford and Wes Allen, I'm Colin Truth. Thanks for listening. Back once again to take us out as our guy Krista makes to sing the Rock Fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
All right.
Rock fight.